I'll ask you to please silence your cell phones. And I would, at this moment, ask Representative Troy Stubbs to open our meeting in prayer.
Our Heavenly Father, we are grateful for this opportunity to gather together. And we are grateful for the experiences that are given us and the opportunity we have to serve others. We are grateful for the opportunities and challenges presented to us as members of leadership in this state. We ask thee to guide and direct us. Please be with us. Help us to fulfill thy will. We ask thee to bless all those who are struggling with grief at this time in our state, in the community of Dadeville, that they might be lifted up and strengthened during this time, and that they will find the resolve to make it through these challenging times. We ask thee to help us to follow the example of thy Son, Jesus Christ, in all that we do. And this we pray humbly in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Clerk will call the roll.
Chairman Garrett.
Here.
Representative Hill. Here. Representative Drummond. Here. Representative Almond. Here. Representative Baker. Here. Representative Chestnut.
Here.
Representative Collins. Here. Representative Colvin. Representative Daniels. Representative Ellis. Representative Faulkner. Representative Lawrence. Here. Representative Lovern. Here. Representative Stubbs. Here. Representative Wood. Here. 13 members answering the roll.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. We have some guests with us today. Representative Collins, you'd like to recognize someone?
I'd love to recognize the impact students. They're from Hartselle and from Danville, if they'd stand. And we are glad to have them in Education Ways and Means Committee. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you for being with us today. We also have as our guests the Student Retention Council of the Higher Ed Partnership. Would you, gentlemen and ladies, please stand? Welcome. Thank you. We actually will hear from these members of this group at the end of our meeting today. So we have a pretty full agenda today. Is Senator Orr here? Yes, Senator Orr, you're recognized to speak about SB 165. Welcome to the lower chamber.
Yeah, I rarely get the opportunity to come, and wanted to tell the committee how much I enjoy working with your chairman. That's going well as we talk about the budget and supplemental, and have had numerous meetings, and we'll have numerous meetings more on top of that. So thank you for that. The other thing is on the bill, I did not know that you all had made the same amendment as far as dropping the acreage from 200, I believe, to 75 to qualify. Important for those counties that are not as flat and easy to have more mountainous terrain. So appreciate you all doing that. Plus, it was on my schedule to be here, and we just wanted to come since I hadn't had that privilege very much. Appreciate the chairman carrying the bill, certainly in the committee and on the floor. Wanted to tell my Hartselle and Danville folks hello. And then lastly, I wanted to talk some smack about tonight, but in all humility, we'll bite my tongue and use my better judgment and sense and not do that, because who knows what the freshman class brings forward as far as capabilities and skills, and we don't want to talk out of turn. So I'm going to be chaste in my language, and we do enjoy having the trophy upstairs, and I know that you all want it, but we're looking forward to fighting for it tonight. And
well, as a budget chair, as you know, your phone blows up a lot. Mine started blowing up this morning at 6 o'clock, and I figured it was budget issues. It was all smack talk about the game tonight.
Yeah, so there's going to be a lot of that today, and certainly tomorrow. I'll tell you this, they're already making plans upstairs about how your majority leader will walk you in all humility, bringing that trophy back to reside in the Senate for another year. So there's a lot of confidence up there. So all the best to you. And Mr. Chairman, thank you. You all know the bill. I'll let you take it from here.
Thank you. So despite his comments, does someone want to move for a favorable report on SB 165?
Mr. Chairman, I move for a favorable report.
Representative Drummond and seconded by Representative Daniels. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Bill's given a favorable report. Next week, we're going to move the agenda around a little bit, and we're going to have Representative Keel, Vice Chair, speak to us about HB 273.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is there a run rule tonight? I'm not going to say who needs that. This bill, in 2011, we passed, or the legislature passed a bill that allowed for small businesses with fewer than 25 employees to deduct their insurance premiums, both the business and the employee, as long as the employee made less than $50,000. This bill would simply expand that to employers who have fewer than 50 employees, with employees making less than $75,000. And this would bring us in line with federal law currently. It would bring our state law in line with federal law. Historically, the deduction has been utilized to about $2 million. The fiscal note on this is $5 million annually.
So I would like for you to explain that one more time, just to make sure everybody understands it, just listens very carefully to what he's saying.
Sure. So currently, if you have less than 25 employees and there's a health insurance premium, the business and the employee can write off the health insurance premium. This would raise that number to 50 employees. And so it includes more small businesses is what it does.
So it's incentive for more small businesses to provide insurance for the employees.
That's correct. And keep employees off of public type insurance. They provide their own insurance. It makes it more makes it more affordable for them to provide insurance.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments for the sponsor? Representative Collin.
I have a friendly amendment I'd like to offer on the bill.
Sure.
Yeah. What this amendment does is we are kind of setting a fiscal sunset on the note, either the sooner of December 31st, 2028, or the first calendar year in which LSA reports that the deductions add up to $10 million. So it's just a little fiscal sunset for us. Make a motion to offer the amendment.
I'd like to make the second.
So we have a amendment has been offered and seconded. Any discussion on the amendment or questions about the amendment? I have a question. It's really just a sunset. Is that what I heard?
That's it. Sure.
Any other comments or questions? All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
All opposed? Amendment's adopted. Any questions about the bill to the sponsor?
Mr. Chairman, I move for a favorable report as amended.
Second.
Favorable report, motion by Representative Colvin as amended, seconded by Representative Collins. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Bill's given favorable report. Thank you,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee.
All right. Next up, Senator Gudger, are you here? I don't know if you're sitting with Mr. Britt out there. I hope he's not playing for you tonight.
Well, what I'm worried about is playing for you guys. That's what I'm worried about anyway. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee, for allowing us to be here. I appreciate everything that y'all have gone through and already passed the House version of this, which is SB 151, which is transparency. This allows the Department of Commerce to be able to put on a website everything from return on investment, the estimated number of jobs, the capital outlay that's estimated, and then making sure that they do that after we do that. And making sure that you understand also this transparency when you're doing these incentives. Yeah. The company has to invest and has to be here a year before they get these incentives. I just like to always say that so people can hear. I'm not going to say anything about the softball game. I want my bill to pass, and so I'm going to stay here. Representative Allman, I thank you for everything you've done in the House and helping pass the House version. There was an amendment that was added to that. I can speak to that, or you can, either one. Okay. We added an amendment just to give an oversight for the incentives. Anytime the state gives away this much money to make sure that we get the number of jobs back into the state, we wanted to make sure that the legislature has oversight. That's what this board did. This board was already created through resolution, and this board was for the last year under Lieutenant Governor. This board, the last time that they met was in January. And it went away after that, after the resolution. So this board is just reestablishing in the statute that if we're going to continue to look at incentives, we need to have this board together, which is a joint board from the House and the Senate. Alan Baker is our chairman currently. Obviously, your chairman is on the board as well, Chairman Orr, myself. Any questions on that?
Any questions about the change the Senate made to the what we discussed last week? Representative Almond, you have any questions or comments about the amendment?
No, I think it makes a lot of sense. Thank you for thinking of
I
it.
appreciate it.
I would just make just a general comment. There's a lot of things that have been discussed in the media about the Jobs Act and the game plan bills and whatnot. I think most of that's been very, very favorable. But I think one thing that needs to be reemphasized, and you brought it up, is the fact that we are sunsetting these credits. They are pay-as-you-go credits. If you don't perform, you don't receive the incentive. There are clawbacks on many of these credits, and they're sunsetting. And as you said, you just added transparency. We also had a huge transparency provision to the game plan bills. And then also, as you just mentioned, you amended this transparency bill to provide further oversight from the legislature. So I think it's an indication of how serious we are and how diligent we're being in making sure we're protecting taxpayer money and investing it and using it wisely. So I just want to make that comment. Representative Baker.
Before we move forward, I do have a friendly amendment. This is in regards to the rotation of the chair and vice chair, which I've discussed this with Senator Gudger. So at the appropriate time, I would like to offer an additional amendment.
Okay, this is timeless now.
This is simply language that would mirror somewhat the intent of other committees that we have that are joint committees, such as the Joint Transportation Committee, which we have 12 and 12 House members, 12 Senate members, and there's been rotation between the chair and the vice chair. And there's been some further discussion on that where they would change this and extend it from instead of every other year to every 2 years and such. And so this is intended to somewhat mirror some of that premise of that language within this amendment. So this would allow for the rotation of the chair, and this would be for 2 years.
Any comments or questions about the amendment?
I believe it's a friendly amendment from my end.
Move to adopt the amendment.
Motion to adopt the amendment by Representative Almond, seconded by Representative Drummond. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Amendment's adopted.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Any
Committee.
other comments or questions?
We'll see y'all tonight.
Favorable report as amended. Second.
Okay, move to give the bill as amended a favorable report by Representative Drummond, seconded by Representative Baker. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Bill's given a favorable report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator.
Committee.
We'll see you tonight.
Put your shoes on.
Next up is HB 23 by Representative Chip Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. This is House Bill 23, and this actually passed out of public safety 2 weeks ago, but we did a sub on it, and so it was recommitted to your committee. What this does is volunteer fire departments up until, I don't know, a couple of years ago were able to purchase drinks and food for their firefighters when they were out fighting fires, and an examiner of public accounts ruling came down that said that they were unable to do that it was commingling of funds. And so what this does, it clarifies it and allows volunteer fire departments to buy Gatorades and food and that sort of thing when they're out fighting fires and in the course of their duties. It also allows them currently, if say your microwave breaks at the volunteer fire department, you can't replace that. You have to have a separate fund to replace it, and this allows them to use operational funds for equipment in the firehouse. And also, what kicked into this committee was, and this was at the recommendation of the speaker, was that because of recruitment is down across the state for volunteer fire departments, and oftentimes what happens is that a volunteer firefighter will be out at his regular job and then have to go out and join the fight on a fire. And in the case of, say, my district, we have miles of interstate, and they have to go directly to the fire and dress out at the fire. And so they don't get reimbursed mileage. Of course, they don't get paid. They're volunteers. And so what this does, it just allows them to, on their income taxes, to file for a credit based upon mileage at the state rate, which is, I believe, 65.5 cents per mile. And that's, it would help with recruitment. There's steps in the bill that is pretty stringent of what they would have to do. I know after a fire, they would have to have the chief sign off on the mileage request of how many miles he traveled, that sort of thing. So it's all documented, and they have to turn that in with their personal income tax annually and get a credit back. So I think it's a good opportunity for us to really help those volunteers that help us in our rural communities every single day.
Any questions for the sponsor?
I just have a comment.
Representative Wood.
We recently had 11 inches of rain in one of our rural counties in Chambers County. We could not have handled everything without our volunteers. Our volunteer firemen they're just amazing people. And so I think it's a fantastic bill. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And to throw upon that too, Representative Wood, you know, in my area, we have hurricanes. In other parts of the state, you have tornadoes, and those guys will be out there for days on end, you know, working chainsaws, that sort of thing. And currently under this, you can't provide them with Gatorade or waters. You gotta, not only do you have to drive to the event, you have to bring your own food and water with you. So I think it's just wrong.
Representative Drummond.
Representative Brown, I want to thank you for the bill because I too know the plight of volunteer firefighters. And I didn't realize they were having such a hard time because they are volunteers and they have other jobs and other lives. So they're often forgotten. So thank you.
Thank you, Representative. I appreciate it.
Representative Lover, did you have a comment or question?
I did. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative, I just wanted to thank you for addressing this issue. Working alongside with volunteers for many years, I tell you, they are champions of our community, and it's harder and harder for us to find people to fill those seats in those trucks on those volunteer departments. And any way we can make a path for that to be easier for them with their sacrifices they're making. You know, in business, we try to make things where it's easy to buy, and we got to make things where it's easy to give on a volunteer basis. So I appreciate you giving this, and at the appropriate time, I'd move for a favorable report.
Second. Any other comments or questions? I do have a question. First of all, thank you for the bill. I think the volunteer fire department model and those resources around the state are so invaluable. They're just, we really appreciate them. I know we've tried in the budgets recently to bring attention and help further support them. But they have a job that I think is very much underappreciated because people just aren't aware of all they do. And I know we have people here in our body that are members of such organizations or of the firefighting community in general. So thank you for bringing the bill. I also want to just mention, I see my wife is here. Carol, can you just wave your hand? Carol's here today. And the reason I bring Carol up is, the reason I mentioned Carol is because we've been married 39 years. I have a master's in tax accounting. And when I was in graduate school, and we would go by and we would go usually to Denny's or somewhere like that, you know, when I would be cramming for an exam. And she really loved me because I would give her my notes, and I would like just recite my notes back to try to get ready for the test. And she had no clue. She's a journalist, but she had no clue about tax talk or whatever. But she patiently listened for all those years and continues to. And recently, she and I had a discussion about the difference between a deduction and a credit. And that's why your bill was brought to our committee. Right. Is that typically mileage is reimbursed, and you fill out a mileage request, you get it, and it's a deduction. And a deduction, the value of that deduction is whatever tax rate you're at. So if you have a $1,000 deduction and you're at a 30% tax rate, then $300 is the tax impact of that deduction. If you have a credit, a $1,000 credit, you take your tax liability and you deduct $1,000 dollar for dollar. So credit's more valuable than a deduction. And this is a little unusual because we're taking mileage, which is normally a deduction, and we're letting this be a credit, which is better. Right. But it's also, I just felt good to say that, you know, because, you know, Carol, am I right? 'Cause we have a motion by, who was it, Representative Wood, and then seconded by Representative Lover. Any other comments or questions? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members. Thank you. I appreciate it.
So I have to go to another committee in the Senate to present a bill, so I'm going to hand the gavel to our ranking member, Representative Drummond. And I don't have to tell her to hit that hard. She will hit that hard, I know.
I'm only doing it. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We will now have the chair present his bills.
No, I'm not presenting.
Yeah, I know. Oh, you're going to the Senate.
Yeah,
Okay, so we're right here.
Yeah, we're, Rafferty.
Okay. Representative Daniels will handle the bill for Representative Neil Rafferty. HB 133.
Good morning, Madam Chair and committee members. This is HB 133, the preceptor tax credit program. As you see, I'm not Representative Rafferty, but Representative Rafferty provided a well-equipped notebook of notes and opportunity for me, so we certainly appreciate him for that. But this is a very simple bill. This is a bill that addresses some of the shortages within the state of Alabama, particularly underserved and rural areas. Allowing professionals to be able to receive a tax credit, students that are in preceptor training programs where they can go into rural areas and do a rotation. The length of this period is for the first 160 clinical hours, they could receive a tax credit of $500. And in some of your community-based programs, those individuals that are experienced practitioners will be able to receive $425 in tax credits. There is an amendment to update the accountability portion of it that will be offered at the appropriate time, as well as changing the actual fiscal year that the tax credits will go into effect as well. And so, Madam Chair, if there's not any questions, I'll.
Are there any questions, Representative Collins, please?
Madam Chair, I'd like to go ahead and offer, it's not an amendment, it's a substitute.
I'm sorry, yeah.
The substitute, and it's in our packet, and it does exactly what Representative Daniels just said. It changes the year from 23 to 24, and it adds more accountability and tries to prevent fraud in a better way.
Are there any questions on the substitute? Did Representative Collins, did you move on?
I moved to offer the sub.
And second by Representative Baker. Call for the question. All in favor?
Aye.
And denies have the same rights. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to the committee.
No, we just adopted the substitute.
We need to do favor report.
Move for a favor report.
As substituted.
As substituted.
Second.
Okay, Representative Almond moved and second by Representative Woods. All in favor?
Aye.
Nays have the same right.
Thank you, committee. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative Smith, HB 132.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and committee. HB 132 is designed to maintain the intent of Sweet Grown Alabama. Last year, if you remember, I carried Sweet Grown Alabama as a bill that would allow for family farms to have value-added crops not be taxed with sales tax. And it passed, and like many things, there are unintended consequences that come along, and so this would affect, it was set up to affect farm-to-table concept and to help family farms and small farmers. There's a potential loophole that this sales tax exemption could apply to products produced by fully integrated facilities and licensees such as medical cannabis. And so what we're wanting this bill to be passed and to ensure that Sweet Grown Alabama exemption does not apply to sale of medical cannabis, and ensure that it goes as the intended purpose of this.
You've heard the sponsor. Are there any questions? Representative Collins.
Motion to move a favorable report.
Is there a second? Are there any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Nays have the same right. Thank you, Representative.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Now, we've got two public hearings, and we're going to take those in the order. We'll start with Representative McCampbell. If Ms. Lauren Hodge with the Alabama Association of County Commissions could come forward, speaking in opposition to the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and members of the committee. We certainly appreciate the opportunity to address you this morning. This is our annual reminder that we come to give the committee every year as it relates to tax exemption bills. Nothing about the group that is named in Representative McCampbell's bill. This is more about a matter about public policy. Every tax exemption bill that is passed certainly has the potential to adversely affect county revenue. That county revenue is budgeted and forecasted. As you well know, these budgets are used to provide local government services to our citizens, their roads, their infrastructure, their public safety, and so on and so forth. And so, again, this is our reminder to all of you as you are presented with tax exemption bills this session to please keep these important points in mind as you vote on these bills. They greatly affect county revenue. Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. We appreciate the opportunity.
Okay, are any questions, Representative Daniels?
Yes, so the Black Belt Regional Child Care Advocacy Center would be the only entity that will be exempt from this. What are we talking about revenue loss? Are we talking significant numbers? Does the good outweigh the bad, or are you talking precedents?
Precedent, and, you know, again, good outweigh the bad. I think I may address your question this way, sir. What level of services do they receive on the county level versus the amount of tax they would be exempt from bills such as this? The services that their county government provides to all the citizens in their county. And so, again, we just wanted to keep these points in front of you as you are presented with exemption bills as this session goes on, because I know you will entertain many more. And we just like to always take the opportunity to remind you that it affects our budget.
I guess my question, let me be more specific. I'm just looking, I'm interested in the numbers. What are we talking? You know, if you're opposing this piece of legislation and it deals with a certain entity, I think what would be appropriate if we knew the actual amount of loss, expected loss that will be gained from this versus the gain from the services that's provided to the community. And so is it a significant loss in revenue? And if it is, then what numbers are we talking?
I do not think it's a significant amount for this particular bill, but collectively, all the exemption bills together do represent a significant loss to county government.
And I would ask that county government consider the implication in the services that are provided based upon the entity that's being named in here and what they provide for the help of the overall well-being of the overall community versus some revenue. I mean, a significant revenue loss will be understandable, but if there is something like this organization that provides adequate services to serve the entire community and it's a minimal hit to a budget, then, you know, it's it has a different meaning. So that's kind of where I am.
Yes, sir. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hodge. The sponsor has arrived. I was giving him a little bit of time to get here. So if Representative McCampbell will come forth and talk about his bill, and so that the committee will know, we'll only do the public hearing. We will take no action on either of these pieces of legislation this morning.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chairman. This bill is for the West Alabama, not just Marengo County or Demopolis Child Advocacy Center. And this is one of the child advocacy centers that, when I say West Alabama, I'm talking Marengo County, Sumter County, Perry County, Greene County, Pickens County. So, as well as, what's that other one? Wilcox County. So this is a advocacy center that serves all these areas. And what the advocacy center does, it basically, if we have a child that has been molested, we literally bring that child into a setting where they only have to talk to one person, rather than constantly having them to relive the action. Then we have this setting where we have counselors that are trained to deal with the emotional issues that this child may have as they are testifying to this thing. So that's what we are doing. It is a minuscule amount of money, and this is one of the only advocacy centers, I think last year, it was the only advocacy center that was not funded by, what is that? Is it Boys Club? Not Boys Club, but it is United Way. And we are still in our 3-year window before we can get United Way funding. And every penny helps these advocacy centers.
We thank the sponsor. Questions, Representative Collins?
Thank you. I thought, well, you answered the first one. We did hear this bill last year as well, right?
We did.
So they're 2 years into that 3-year window, correct?
2 years in.
I saw this, I read it, and so I actually spoke with our local United Way person because I'm a huge supporter of child advocacy centers. I think what they do for children in the worst of cases is just amazing, and I appreciate that. And I support this tax exemption. I did hear from United Way that there was a possibility of speeding up that 3-year window for already established programs like child advocacy. So that might be something to check on in between.
I'll get with the director and have them to re-engage with United Way then.
Since they're 1 year out, maybe they would show a little mercy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Daniels.
Until that's resolved, I think that we can probably put a sunset on this. But I think that if there is a need now, then we need to address the needs now. The longer we wait, the worse problems get. And so I think anything that we can do to address this issue more immediate is with the action that we need to take.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Thank you,
Madam
Representative Allman.
Yes.
So help me understand what the current law is. I've actually dealt a little bit with this in my law practice with trying to get a nonprofit that I formed on this list. And as I recall, and I may be wrong, that in speaking of the 3-year, they actually could not apply to be on this list until they had been in existence for 3 years. Is that right?
That's it.
And but in your organization has not been in existence for 3 years?
No. The Child Advocacy Center in West Alabama hasn't been in. We've been in 2 years now. And this will be we're moving toward our 3rd year. I don't remember exactly when it was formed, but we are moving toward our 3rd year.
Which I remember at the time thinking it seems backwards because when they need the most help is when they get started. But I understand the idea behind it. They want to make sure they're a viable organization and up and running and got everything squared away before they start to recognize them in this manner, I guess, is sort of the thinking behind it. But, so you're just trying to
basically get every penny that we can to apply toward the services we provide.
But you think next year, about this time, you'll be in the right window in terms of timing?
We believe we will be in, and I just learned from Representative Collins there that we may be able to even try and get it speeded up this year. So we're going to try that also.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, one quick question. How many counties did you say this would cover? Because it seems like a small amount for a large swatch of counties.
It's a small amount for a large squash of counties because we're the only one in that area.
How many counties?
Sumter, Greene, Marengo, Perry, Wilcox, and Pickens. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And we won't take any action. It'll be back on the agenda next week. The chair will have it. Representative, I thought I saw him. Representative Rogers? Right. Okay. HB 90. And we've got 4 that are in opposition, and we'll allow them to speak after you sort of present.
I could have filled the room up with people supporting this bill because I got that many supporters called for this bill. I just told them don't worry about it because what it does, it allows you to keep a child who's learning has learning disorder to age 26. You already do to 21. What it does, you got to realize these kids, they've taught to be able to take care of themselves, and people don't realize that a lot of times when you have these kids, the parents pass on. So then the child left out there by himself to teach them how to be self-sufficient. And they have programs now. And Leonard B. Nolan School, matter of fact, gave me the bill where they have several kids at Leonard B. Nolan School right now, where they're trained right now. And they keep me in anyway. But I've been asked by AA to make this mandatory because of the fact it's needed so badly in the state. And you put Alabama at the cutting age of, school to age 26. I had it as a, you can do it if you want to, but the parents work with the school and the kids and teach them how to be self-sufficient. Because you got to realize that at some point with these kids, parents are going to pass on. And then they're out there in the street. So therefore, this allows them to be able to survive and learn. A lot of them are very gifted kids. They're just slow. As a matter of fact, I know one of them speaks 4 languages, including French and all that kind of stuff. So therefore, they need a little help, and that's all it does. It provides keep them off the street by themselves getting. And there's a companion bill with it that calls for a register in Washington, so when somebody stops them on the street, as they age out, they be identified who they are, and they won't get killed by the police. They understand what's going on, but when they look normal, but they're not normal totally. And when the police stop them, they get frustrated, and so therefore it calls for a lot of people to get hurt and killed because the guardian got to register with the register in Washington for the National Register, so they identify who they are. That's all the bill does. It just helps out the problem a little bit. That's all it does. And I've been questioned by AA to make it mandatory, make sure it happens, because a lot of people want this to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Are there any quick questions for the representative? Representative Collins?
You answered my first one about what age it was now.
Right.
So you're wanting it to be mandatory, but in some districts it's already allowed. Is that correct?
Right. Some districts are already allowed. They do it anyway because at Leonard B. Nolan School, they have such care for these kids. That as a matter of fact, I didn't think about this bill until you asked me to do this bill. I went to their graduation for those kids, and my heart just went out for them. I mean, it brought tears to my eyes when I saw these kids, these people in that class. And they had done wonders for those kids. I was surprised. I mean, it's not the kind of bill I usually sponsor because I was just shocked at it. But they asked me, will you please do something to help us? As a matter of fact, they all wanted to be here. I could have brought the whole school here. I told them, don't do that. I think it'd be okay. I said, I think it'd be okay. Don't worry about it. So I called them out, told them to come. But they would fill this whole room up. The people who supported it. I was surprised how many calls I got in support of the bill. It shocked me. I said, they said, thank you for the bill. So therefore, that's what I'm bringing it. I'm just trying to help them out.
Thank you. Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
AA supports it, so.
All right, thank you, Representative.
They want it mandatory. I had to get a bill to make it mandatory.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers.
Thank you, Representative Rogers. We will now have Jimmy Martin, Superintendent of Pell City Schools, speaking in opposition.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, thank you for having me here this morning. I will say this. In education, you don't get into education unless you have a heart for children, more especially our special education students. And we truly have a heart for our special education students. The reason that we're really in opposition is there's so many hidden costs associated with this that we feel like to a large extent it's going to be unfunded. You know, IDEA laws require them up through the age of 21. 26, we educate special education students with their peers. Age 26 is not age 15. 15 is a high school student. That's not a peer. Also, there are other hidden costs. Roughly about 20% of our special education costs are covered from local funds because there's so many hidden costs. Transportation, we usually have aides a lot of times with our special education students, and a lot of times it's one student on a bus. And those are things there. And we have problems getting bus drivers. The other thing we have is problems getting special education teachers. I think I'd say a large number of our districts right now are still short on special education teachers. So how are we going to be adequately serving these students if we're having problems right now? The other thing, roughly in the state, it's going to cost, just on the state side of it, roughly about $350 million additional state dollars. Because this is not federally covered. This is state covered because it's not on the federal end of FAR being required. The other thing we have is safety. A lot of times we have to do things as far as therapeutic things to help our students, to keep them from hurting themselves and hurting others. And now we have a 26-year-old that's in that boat in there with a 15-year-old. And that's something that's a concern to us also. I will say this, facilities, a lot of schools that have space issues, we're going to have to do construction, have additional space in order to house additional students. And that's another thing also in that. But the big piece right now is mainly just the staffing. Staffing is a challenge as we are right now. And adding additional 5 years onto our requirement would mainly make that issue even more pressing for all of our educational system because it's very taxing right now. But I'd like to thank all of you for having us here, and thank you for letting me speak on House Bill 90.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Martin. Quentin Lee, Superintendent of Talladega City Schools.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee. I stand before you today as the superintendent speaking in favor of education, but against this proposal. According to the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, it states that children and youth ages 3 through 21 can receive special education and related services under IDEA Part B, and this is to ensure that they receive a free and appropriate public education. The absence of the federal regulation upon students that will stay until the age of 26 means that there will be essential funds removed from this process, which once again would be state funded, which that means that we would have to take state funds to fund this program. This bill, in my opinion, would be very detrimental to the budget of the state of Alabama as well as school systems. There are also no standards. Schools are built upon standards. Right now we have standards that our students are working on from K through 12. They can either be on the general education, the advanced, essentials, and or alternative assessment standards. For students beyond the age of 21, there are no standards for them to work on. So essentially it would become a babysitting service versus an educational setting to provide these students to move forward. This bill will once again negatively affect the many organizations that serve individuals with disabilities. There are a lot of young adult and adult agencies to provide services for individuals with disabilities. In our school settings, we also have transitional settings. Transition is to make sure that these students receive the services that they need to become adults and proficient. These are included in our IEPs, which are the individualized education plans, and worked on tirelessly with the special education teachers in the school setting. These services are rendered, allow our students the opportunity to advance at their next stage in life. Increasing the age, in my opinion, once again, would be detrimental and would cause great danger to the state of public education. Thank you for this opportunity to speak for education. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee, Superintendent Lee. Bart Reeves with the Alabama Association of School Boards.
Madam Chair, committee members, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today on this bill. Today we're here to discuss a bill about extending the special education services from age 21 to age 26. Some of my comments that you're about to hear are very similar to what our superintendents just shared with you. We're going to be looking at financial concerns. We're also going to be looking at inappropriate age grouping concerns. So it's important to note that both federal and state funding that school systems receive today do not fully financially support our special education services. We know that. I know that as a former superintendent. In the school system where I was previously, we had to rely on additional funds from the state, catastrophic funds. So we had to apply for that grant, and that provided our school system close to $200,000. And if we did not have that $200,000, we would have, local funds would have to pick up that cost. So by extending these services to age 26, we risk placing a further financial burden or financial hardship on our schools. That's the reality of it. Superintendent talked about hidden costs. You could be in a classroom, and I can think of a classroom right now that has 3 aides in the classroom, 2 nurses in the classroom, and also a special ed teacher. And you look at their salary and benefits and you add all of those costs up, it's significant, and that is a true concern. Also, inappropriate age grouping. It's simply not appropriate to mix 24, 25, and 26-year-olds with 12, 13, and 14-year-olds. That's the reality of it. Age grouping would create challenges for our educators. It would negatively impact the learning environment, and it would also potentially hinder the social development of younger students. And if we have those in our audience or committee members, if you're thinking right now, well, let's just separate the two. Yeah, I get that. I understand that. But again, it's going to come with additional costs. So with that in mind, with that being said, AASB urges you to oppose this legislation and continue to follow federal IDEA guidelines with certain special education students aging out at 21 years of age. Committee members, thank you.
Okay, one more speaker, Vic Wilson with class.
Madam Chair, thank you, committee. Give me an opportunity. I represent Class Council for Leaders in Alabama Schools. We also represent the Allocase Leaders. That's the Alabama Council of Special Education Directors. I've spoken with several special education directors. No one is in favor of this. The IDEA law has been around since 1975, 504, shortly thereafter. 21 is the age. I know of no system that allows students to stay past the age of 21. Some states do extend that to 22. California is one example of that. Georgia also it does that. I personally don't think that having a 26-year-old in the same building with a 14-year-old is a good idea. I would also echo what my colleagues have said about the cost. IDEA was supposed to be funded at 42% in 1975. Currently, we're getting 16% of that. Okay? So we are going to give another unfunded mandate, and that's going to come from local. These superintendents sitting right here stretch their dollars. There's no possible way to stretch those dollars for the ages of 22 through 26. I would also caution you on the unintended consequences for the rehab services that these students, these young adults get between the ages of 22 and 26. If they stay in school, that budget's going to crash also. So unintended consequences. For the most part, I would say this. I'm in schools every day. I'm talking to them, not in them, but I'm around schools every day. I travel all the time. I have the pulse of the leaders. No one has mentioned this to me as a concern. No one. We have a huge shortage of special education teachers already. This would exacerbate that to the point of caseloads of 60 and more per special education students. Simply untenable. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Any questions from the members? Representative Daniels?
Yes, Madam Chair. I guess a question is, have any of the folks that are opposing this legislation spoke with the sponsor and had a conversation with the sponsor about this legislation at all? Any of the 4 or 5 people that stood up and spoke? I can't hear anybody. Out of respect for the sponsor that's carrying the bill, I do think, Madam Chair, there needs to be a conversation, because if the sponsor is blindsided by the opposition to the bill, that's unfair to the sponsor. And I don't think in good taste we should be operating in the shadows unless it's something that just came up, just got on your radar. But I'm certain that there are people internally that track a lot of pieces of legislation. So it's unfair to the sponsor. As a former practitioner and a current legislator, we cannot let any person, we have to do all that we can for all young people, young adults that we can. The K-12 setting may not be the setting for them. But I think at the end of the day, we have to figure out some type of safe solution in order to improve the quality of life for those individuals too, because they deserve it. They were in your system. Obviously, when they left your system, they did not have the things that they needed when they left the system. And if it's a funding issue, then that's a legislative problem that we need to do a better job of funding. And so I do understand the age difference and the age gap. However, I just ask that the folks that are opposing this piece of legislation work with the sponsor and bring something back to us that's more manageable for us to at least solve the problem. Chairman Collins mentioned that in her district, transportation is not that much of an issue because she's in more of an urban setting, and they have the bus routes that are already going and traveling to these schools. And if in fact there have not been any issues regarding concerns where 22, 23, 24-year-olds that are basically having the mindset of a 12-year-old, that they're still trying to develop and make them productive citizens in those communities, we should not leave them behind. And so let's figure out a way to work together and work with the sponsors and operate in the light and not in the dark to address this issue and solve the problem.
Thank you, Representative Daniels. We won't take any action on either of these bills today, but as Representative Daniels just referenced, we've got time. So if those who are in opposition can get with the sponsor and see what we can work out, we would appreciate it. I wanted to recognize one of our superintendents who I think Representative Baker both were very, very impressed with how she's turned her system around. Dr. Suzanne Lacey with Talladega School System. And if you all have an opportunity, in her words and her words only, come to Talladega and see what we're doing. We don't mind taking risks. Representative Baker.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I would just like to reiterate that Dr. Lacey, thank you so much for your leadership. To all the superintendents, we appreciate all of you being here today. But Dr. Lacey, you presented before Governor Ivey's Commission on Education, on Teaching and Learning, of which both myself and Madam Chair Drummond both serve. And it was our pleasure just to hear all the spectacular things that are going on in your school district. You really aren't afraid to take risk in order to try to achieve betterment for the students. But once again, thank you for your leadership. It's much appreciated. I applaud you.
Well, thank you all again. We will now have a 10-minute presentation from the Student Retention Council. And I'll caution 10 minutes. Okay.
Madam Chair, my name is Alexi Bolton. I'm with the Higher Education Partnership. We represent the 14 public universities in the state of Alabama, and we are really excited for you to hear from these students. We wanted to say personally from the partnership, thank you for your support of this initiative. We're honored to be a part of it, and we're really proud of the work they've done. I'm going to turn it over to them. Sorry, but I think you're going to be excited about what they have to say.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Thank you all for the opportunity to share with you today. My name is Rihanna Butler, and I'm from the gorgeous campus of Auburn University at Montgomery. I'm joined by my peers and represent the 14 public universities. We appreciate you all for the opportunity to share the work that we have done over the last year and our impressions as we look ahead to the future growth of the Student Retention Council. The Student Retention Council represents the voices of over 180,000 students and have been working to encourage more students to consider a career in Alabama. We were appointed by our university presidents and formed to supplement the current Retain Alabama efforts. With two goals in mind, the first was to act as messengers to our peers, encouraging every student on our campus to consider Alabama as a career destination after they graduate. We aim to understand why graduates were leaving and combat negative impressions of Alabama with peer-to-peer conversation. The second goal was to serve as a voice. Representing the concerns of our peers within the 14 universities, we work to gather feedback and translate the barriers and challenges students saw when facing a decision about where to settle after graduation to community leaders so that we could work together to create additional opportunities for growth and improvement. My colleague Aubrey Wooding will be able to speak.
Good morning. My name is Aubrey Whidden, and I'm from Jacksonville State University. The Student Retention Council provides a unique voice because we are members of the demographic Retain Alabama is targeting. Including voices like ours is the key to reaching Gen Z because as digital media natives, we have become immune to traditional advertising and instead crave personal connections and perspectives. Throughout the past year, the Student Retention Council worked to design a project that will provide the best information to our peers and gather the best responses from local leaders. The Student Retention Council first met in August and reviewed existing Retain Alabama research in context of each of our home universities. We decided to maximize the number of Alabama students we could reach by presenting to each of our prospective campuses. In this report, we will share the results of our presentation and key insights we shared with community leaders as we progressed. We decided to highlight 4 key areas that were incredibly important to Alabama's college students. These areas were quality of life, diversity and inclusion, access to career pathways, and affordability. These were pivotal areas because they were highlighted in existing Retain Alabama research as important factors to whether students remain in the state following graduation. We also realized these were areas we could improve perceptions of by raising awareness about some of Alabama's strengths. My colleague Shannon McKinstry will now discuss our campus presentations and results.
Hi, my name is Shannon McKinstry, and I represent the University of West Alabama. So from the
planning portion that my colleague just shared, we customized a presentation that we shared on each of our campuses about those 4 key qualities, which were quality of life, diversity and inclusion, access to career pathways, and affordability. Over the past few months, we have reached out to various campus groups with the goal of spreading awareness and improving impressions on those 4 key qualities. We believe that our direct presentations were only the start to a bigger conversation that will result in widespread impact. During this presentation, we offered a survey both before and after our presentation to evaluate what factors most impacted our peers' decisions. Based on prior research and our own experiences, it's not surprising that the primary influence was still the career opportunity or competitive job offers. Even when accounting for benefits and cost of living, many students felt that they had trouble finding connections to competitive job opportunities in their field. Though some had a level of knowledge, many students were surprised at Alabama's low cost of living. That said, many also responded that our presentation helped them think about the different opportunities and encouraged them to focus their job search within the state of Alabama. After presenting to our peers, we gathered feedback and took it to our regional community dinners across the state. At these dinners, we had the opportunity to share a shortened version of what our campus presentations had to say. We had in-depth conversations with the community leaders about these opportunities so that we could build strategies that would help small to mid-size cities recruit and retain their graduates. Overall, we worked with a wide variety of community leaders representing every sector of the leadership and development community. This resulted in very successful dinners. I will now pass it to Michael, who will share more on our key insights and recommendations that we shared at these reports. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair and committee members. First and foremost, thank you for your time today. I'm Michael Milner, representative of the Student Voices at the University of Alabama. From our conversation, key opportunities from Alabama really fell into 2 priorities: growing and emphasizing career opportunities and working on rebranding the state and raising awareness of our strengths. We developed 2 key questions that we worked through during our community dinners. 1, how might we transition to a knowledge-based work economy in Alabama instead of a jobs-based work economy? 2, how might we romanticize Alabama so that young professionals do not feel the need to leave the state to chase the lifestyle that they crave? In response to these questions, SRC members worked with community leaders to develop a few solutions or ideas. Some of them are: 1 being an increased focus on recruiting knowledge-based jobs, even to small businesses in mid-sized towns. 2, programs linking students to community employers for paid internships early in their collegiate career. 3, increased focus on exploration of opportunities outside of one's majors that companies may seek to increase awareness in degree programs that are not explicitly related to their field. 4, social media and digital marketing for small to mid-sized towns, targeting influence style marketing. Finally, regular young professional or college student nights at local businesses with entertainment or cost savings to draw in a crowd. Additionally, the SRC reviewed some job searching platforms for Alabama Commission on Higher Education to provide a student's perspective on what is working well or not working to reach students. Overall, we determined that the More to Mobile platform was the most effective platform on those presented because it focuses on all categories of life in Mobile, Alabama, even outside of just job search, but also included a wide range of job opportunities that could appeal to a variety of educational levels and interest. Looking to the future, the SRC also created a plan for future digital outreach and strategies that could be used by next year's Retention Council to amplify the impact that we have shared today. Madam Chairman and committee members, we wanted to say thank you again for your time and support in this initiative. We feel that we have made a significant impact and have been able to elevate Alabama's position in the minds of many of our peers on our college campuses. We look forward to continuing the work in the future and building on these efforts. Thank you again, and we would love to answer any questions you may have.
Wonderful presentation. Absolutely wonderful. You all, the council members, have put a great deal of work. Any questions from the members? Representative Chestnut?
Yes, I wanted to kind of know with those 4 factors, if you could, or someone could kind of go into a little bit more detail of what you mean, like the quality of life and the diversity and inclusion.
So when we first started this council, our goal was to get college student voices to the table. As far as DEI, we reached out to our students, and we just wanted to make the message clear that anybody is welcome in the state of Alabama, no matter where you're from, your background, your race, ethnicity. So as far as DEI goes, we just, from our results, we understood that many of our peers wanted to feel welcome in the state. I'm sorry, it was diversity, equity, and inclusion, and what was the other one that you asked?
And quality of life.
Quality of life, yes, sir. So many of the times you see students they come to Alabama and they get a great education from one of our 4-year institutions, and they leave and go chase a lifestyle in Nashville. And what we're trying to do is raise awareness that Alabama does have a very lucrative lifestyle. You just have to go out there and find it.
Representative Kyle, I'm sorry, are you finished, Representative?
I had one more. And so, like we talked about quality of life and D&I, but were there any parallels with how that connected? Did that affect quality of life, D&I?
Yes, sir. I would say it's reasonable to say that they definitely correlate. Once again, this was our feedback from students on campus. So yes, sir, I would have to imagine that with D&I and quality of life, students would definitely consider staying in state post-graduation.
Representative Collins?
I want to thank each of you, and I enjoyed looking over your reports as about your individual projects and all. I found that fascinating, and as someone who's really worked on the career pathway, really interesting, because you're right, I focused it on high school students, and it would be for college students as well, and so hopefully that we will move. Alabama Works that way. But thank you for your hard work, your great presentations, and I look forward to continuing to find ways to keep our students in Alabama. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Representative Colvin?
Yeah. I just want to thank y'all for what y'all are doing. As someone who is recently out of college and chose to stay in Alabama, that's really kind of the main reason I ran for office, was I wanted to help find solutions. So when people graduated from high school or college, they stayed in our state. Really the main reason I ran for office to begin with. It always offended me back home when people's first thing they would say is, I can't wait to leave Alabama. And so I want to help, partner with you guys and whatever we can do so that when my kids graduate from high school or college, they can't wait to stay in Alabama. So I appreciate what you guys are doing.
Absolutely.
He's bridging the digital as well as the generational divide in the legislature. Representative Studs?
He's also bragging.
I certainly appreciate the presentation, and I find it interesting as we all transition through life. I'm a graduate from the University of Alabama and have attended other universities as well, and I think the perspective on quality of life specifically, it changes throughout life, or what you are seeking for quality of life. And so it's great to hear the perspective of college students, because I probably had the same desire for quality of life when I was graduating from college. It was looking for social opportunities. You mentioned Nashville, obviously, is a large city in the South that a lot of people look at as a great place for young entrepreneurs and early in their professional careers. But as you get older, I have 4 children. One is in college. My youngest is 10 years old. My quality of life, what I'm seeking is much different. I want no traffic. I want a slow life. I want land. I want a place for my children to explore. So it's wonderful to hear that perspective, and I hope that we can look for ways to bridge that, because your desires now will probably change when you're 40 and have children, and you may be looking for something different. So it's important for us as a state to try and connect with all of those different age groups and in terms of what they're seeking in quality of life. So I appreciate that insight that you provided today.
Absolutely.
Are there any other questions from the committee? I wanted to, is that more or move to Mobile? Because I'm hoping it's moved to Mobile, because I'm from South Alabama and we happen to think it's got some great amenities for young people.
Absolutely. I'm from Saraland, Alabama, so
okay.
I know.
All right. Well, thank you all. This was a wonderful presentation. Y'all give them a round of applause.
Thank you.
Ways and Means Education stands adjourned.